Hello and welcome to Meeting C++ Live. And tonight we are hosting the chief Qt maintainer, Volker Hilsheimer. Hello and welcome, Volker. So there's probably a lot of people who wonder who you are and what you do. Let's get started with a little bit of an introduction.
All right. Thank you, Jens, for having me over, so to speak. It's a pleasure and honor to be here. Yeah, my name is Volker Hilsheimer. I'm the chief maintainer of the Qt project. As a way of introduction, I have been working with Qt since the late 90s when I was studying computer science in northern Germany, in Rostock. Started to use Qt there as one of the, not necessarily holiday work assignments, but something to that effect, at least, working with a small company there that did research and using Qt. And as part of my education, I then had an internship with Trolltech back then in Oslo in Norway. Moved to Norway for that and got stuck, I should say, with working for Trolltech, working on Qt, which was a lot of fun for many, many years. And then Nokia, as you might remember, acquired Trolltech, where I changed from the technical support role I had in the beginning to a more managerial role in Nokia. And then once Nokia decided to not continue the strategy with Qt, I went to a few other places, tried to see some other parts of the industry, and now I have been back since 2018, late 2018, in the Qt project and the Qt community. And when Lars decided to step down and take on some new challenges after 25 years with Qt, we had a vote in the community, and I'm very happy and very proud and thankful to have become the Qt chief maintainer at that opportunity. So I'm working today in the Qt company as one of the R&D area leads, director, responsible for the graphics and UI area, with a whole bunch of fantastic people in Oslo and in Oulu in northern Finland, and happily still having some time at least to do coding myself and being involved in some of the technical discussions. That's the long and short of me. I'm in Oslo. I am German originally. Like I mentioned, studied in northern Germany, but have been living in Oslo now for 23 years.
Yeah, that's quite a vita, and you do not have a German accent.
That depends on who you ask, but thank you very much.
At least I don't hear it. Let's start with an easy question. What's new in Qt?
What's new in Qt? We are just finishing the 6.5 release. That should come out in the next couple of weeks. Preparing the release candidate right now. Yanni is working on that, trying to get things to line up. And in 6.5, we have a number of things. I need to write the blog post for the release in the next couple of days as well. So needs some more research because a lot of stuff has happened there. Some of the highlights one of the highlights is that we have a new solution for making effects in our Qt Quick rendering architecture. Ability to combine multiple effects in a very cost-efficient, performant way, and with a tool that allows you to create effects visually as well, and basically implement the shader that way. Also very well integrating with Shader Toy, for instance. So that's one of the highlights. That's one of the things that was missing still in Qt 6. We have the graphical effects framework in the compat module only, but we were not happy with the architecture of how graphical effects were realized there, because combining multiple effects basically required having several frame buffers and several draw calls, and that was not very performant. So with Qt 6, we took the time now to craft something that is more sensible, more better architecture, more performant, and also at the same time more powerful, actually. Both for users that are happy with writing shader code and for people who are not. So that's one of the highlights, definitely. We made a couple of things happen on the desktop side specifically, like integrating better with the GTK3 look and feel, for instance. So on GNOME desktops, Linux users can expect that their Qt applications with Qt 6.5 follow better the personalization settings that they are. And also on Windows, we tried to come up with a meaningful solution to support the dark mode better. Qt style implementation on Windows still uses the UX theme API that was introduced back in the Windows 95 days, and that API never gives us any dark assets. So we are using this API to get the assets for the styling, for instance, and that API doesn't know dark mode. That made it very difficult for us to have a meaningful implementation of a native-looking dark mode. But as an intermediate step now, we have a better integration with the palette system and with the theme system. And if you use a style that is actually working with a palette, like the Fusion style, for instance, you get a pretty good look and feel for Qt application on the dark Windows 11, for instance. What else do we have? We have been working quite a bit on connectivity solutions. So one of the things we want to introduce as a technology preview with 6.5 is an API for GRPC protocol support and protobuf support. Since, you can, of course, write network code today already and consume web services, for instance, with Qt. But GRPC and protobuf are very efficient, very performant, and also more modern than doing low-level or REST-based, JSON-based API calls. So that's a number of things that we have done there. And then, a gazillion improvements on the QML engine. Many of those driven by some of the work that we did internally to expose more of our C++ APIs to QML. And also, one of the things that we have been doing is porting Qt location over to Qt 6. That was also one of the frameworks that we didn't have there. And that was a larger cleanup effort, getting rid of some of the overhead that was required to expose C++ types to QML, creating wrapper types, and so forth. So the guys that are working on the QML engine have done a fantastic job in bringing more language-level capabilities and engine-level capabilities to expose value types, for instance, to QML. That's going to make a lot of that integration work a lot easier and a lot less boilerplate and overhead and so forth. So that's something I'm very happy about. And let me think. On the multimedia side, we added screen capturing support, which would be useful for something like this fantastic tool, being able to share screens and record, do screen recordings from a Qt API. What else? Very long list. Improvements in Qt PDF, improvements in the Qt locale and daytime handling, if I recall correctly. There's a whole list of what's new in 6.5 already up in the documentation snapshots, which you can look at. It's a very long tail of minor and bigger features. So I think 6.5 is going to be a pretty good release and pretty much an improvement over both what we had in Qt 6.4 and also from the 5.15 perspective. Now having basically all the functionality that we used to have in Qt 5 over in Qt 6 with some very minor exceptions, but by and large, pretty much done with that.
Okay, so here we have a few questions now from the audience. Let's get started with what is the place of Qt as a cross-platform framework for audio programming?
What is the place of Qt as a cross-platform framework for audio programming? We do have a lot of users in the media processing space, let's say, in the audio processing space, both in terms of commercial applications, a fair amount of professional applications that you find on, in that space are done with Qt, or at least have extensibility through Qt plugins. That is something that many of our customers and users are doing. Tuane has recently written a blog post, I believe, about how we can integrate into the standard frameworks that are available in that space with Qt, and how to make the event loops and so forth navigate and integrate with each other. And of course, we have things like Open Broadcast Studio, which is using Qt. So also on the open source side, quite a bit of multimedia processing, let's say. Otherwise, I'm not in the domain of audio programming very deeply to be able to say, are people using Qt for doing low-level signal processing things, for instance. But I have to stay with my answer on that somewhat high level. It's one of the areas where we see Qt to be really strong and have a lot of having also native applications running natively on your system continues to be the only meaningful way of doing that kind of thing. So it's an important domain for us.
I found the recent blog post about running a Juice application basically as a hello world on the Qt blog. I found it interesting, and I would be nice to see like a follow up, like having like more than a proof of concept there.
Good to know.
And there's a question from LinkedIn. Rust is always a popular topic nowadays. So
yes.
I know that KDAB is working on a bridge from Qt to Rust. Is Qt itself looking at Rust as maybe there's a Python port, so is Rust in the future plans of Qt, or what's your opinion on Rust? And let's cover all.
Yeah, it's a very popular question, and not just Rust in specific, but other languages in general. I think also when we look at C++ successor languages from last year and last couple of years, that is of course always an opportunity for us to discuss. Okay, what does that all mean for us? There have been various attempts and there are various attempts still to bridge Qt and Rust, to make it easy to use Qt APIs from Rust and have application developers benefit from the things in Qt that are not in Rust in some way or the other. My view is that Rust has a lot of the things as part of the Rust standard library, so to speak, that we built in Qt and have built in Qt because it simply isn't or wasn't part of the C++ standard library and frameworks when Qt was created. So from that perspective, porting Qt to Rust or making all of Qt available to a Rust programmer, I don't think that solves a real problem. And rewriting Qt or writing substantial parts of Qt in Rust, I don't think that is currently a focus for anybody, and it's definitely not something we are thinking very actively about. If there are any parts in Qt, for instance, that need to be ported to Rust, that is not topical for us. What is very interesting for us to think about is, can we make those parts of Qt that are not part of other languages, where other languages don't have a solution, the UI framework primarily, can we make that available to Rust programmers so that Rust applications can have their backend written and their application logic written in Rust, and then have a good interface, good integration, for instance, into Qt Quick and Qt QML. I think that is something that has been prototyped already with, I think there's a meta object crate in Rust that Olivier has written several years ago, and some of the KDAB work is also, if I recall correctly, looking into that direction. And I think that is where we can really make a difference, where we can really bring the fantastic technology we have in Qt for UI programming, for graphics programming, into make that available to people and to languages and to communities that today at least don't have Qt, but maybe they have another graphics framework. The Rust is not free of graphics frameworks, but if I look at other languages, like for instance Python or Zig or many of the C++ successor languages, I think there is an opportunity for us there to rather focus on that part, rather than saying, let's bring Qfile or Qt Network over to Rust. And I don't think that scratches a particularly important itch. So yes, that is the current state of thinking. The future, there's a lot more future than what I'm thinking about right now. We are, of course, thinking about, we work with industries where safety criticality is a big topic, and certification and so forth. And that work and these conversations might get us to the point where we say, okay, with C++, for instance, we might not solve that problem adequately. And then we could look into, are there other languages that give us more safety nets as a language feature? I don't think Rust would then be the necessarily obvious choice if I look at some of the other C++ successor languages that have perhaps a better and more natural integration into the C++ ecosystem than Rust. But who knows?
Well, I think Rust has the advantage of being a mature language. The successor languages are mostly ideas.
It's a major language, but I think that some of the other ideas like CPP2 or Carbon have a better plug into the CPP ecosystem.
Yeah, who knows where they go. So someone is always struggling to find the roadmap for Qt development. Long time ago, this was easy, but today this info seems to be quite hidden. Are there pointers related to this?
That is definitely something where we are not doing a particularly good job, and where I think also I, as a chief maintainer so far, haven't put a lot of attention to. How do we bring the community of contributors in particular together. We have our contributor summits once a year where we are discussing where do we want to go with Qt. We have some mailing list discussions in that respect. And of course, within the Qt company, as a commercial entity, we have conversations with customers and we have roadmaps and so forth. But I think it's not, it's something that I know that our product management team from a commercial perspective is looking at. What can we publish in a meaningful way that also allows us to collect feedback from users? What is more important than other things for them? So that's something that is work in progress from that perspective. But especially also if I look at how can we make sure and how can we help contributors understand where we would like people to spend time on. I think that is something we have been struggling with for a while. And I think the best thing to do at this point is to look at where the action is in the project. So on Gedit, if you are familiar with that tool, you can see all the open changes, for instance, that are under review and give you an idea of what are people working on. You can look into Jira, which is, we all know, at least within the Qt project, I think that it's a very big haystack with many, many needles, and it's hard to find out there what's valuable. And of course, if you have an idea, if you have a proposal, if you think there is something that you would like to work on and contribute to Qt, then starting by making a proposal on the mailing list and seeing what people think, and before you start writing tons of code, getting some feedback and getting some people to join you, perhaps, is a good idea. Not a very satisfactory answer, I know, but that's the current state of affairs.
Indeed. Another question from LinkedIn: is it possible to prepare a Qt plugin for VS Code, especially for QML?
I do believe that somebody in our Berlin team has started to work on that and has something that that was ready for testing. So it's definitely possible. And there is something in the works. I'm not entirely on top of where we are with that particular work. I'm a Visual Studio Code user myself. So both in terms of language server support for QML, that of course will be coming to Visual Studio Code that way, and also more comprehensive plugin with debugging integration and so forth. Yes.
Indeed. Could there be like a web server API in C++ similar to WT as in Qt based?
So at this point, I have to say that I don't know what WT is in this particular context. We have made an HTTP server module available in the last Qt releases. First as tech preview, and now in 6.5, I believe we make that a fully supported module. That is a module that you can use to integrate, make a web server, make web service API, put that into your application. It is not something that we want to replace Apache or whatever with, right? That is not the point of this exercise, but rather to say, okay, your application is running on a system and it wants to make certain data, for instance, available to consumers, to clients out there, and that's something you can build with that web service API. It's not giving you security controls at this point, so you would typically run that kind of thing behind a reverse proxy or in an otherwise trusted network. But at least in terms of using C++ and Qt to make a web service API, that is something that we have now with Qt. Yes.
Yeah, I've actually been looking at that last fall for toying around with the Qt Graph API, and Qt Graph API is under GPL. So I was thinking about making a graph server as a toy example.
Cool.
And then there's actually another framework which uses Qt and offers web service interfaces where you can write that with. But I am not sure about their name right now. And
there are several frameworks out there and GitHub projects and so forth where people have built Qt.
But right now, Qt is there's an HTTP server which is like for internal things and uses, but there's not a face or web API planned. Except that there is, maybe you want to quickly also mention that there is WebRSM port of Qt. You can compile Qt to Emscripten.
That is very true. That is our WebAssembly port right now. That is something we are very actively working on. I think that's a super exciting technology for us and for us as for the application development space and domain in general, WebAssembly, and that's definitely the web as such is for us a rather interesting space right now.
Okay. Has it been considered to get rid of the mock compiler in the medium long term? For me, extra tooling, that has been one major pain point when using Qt.
The mock compiler allows us to do things that we believe will really never be adequately solved by just C++, because the C++ design philosophy of abstractions without overhead do not reconcile very well with true runtime introspection and reflection. And that is, again, something that we then need for doing things like language bindings, the QML engine, and so forth. So from what I see coming out of the C++ standards, I don't anticipate that we can get rid of the mock. There might be, you already can today use most of Qt without having to worry about the mock, or without using the QObject macro at all. For instance, you can connect your own member functions to a Qt signal, for instance, without having to make your QObject subclass have its own meta object. So you cannot use the QObject macro and still can connect your objects to Qt objects. You cannot declare your own signals. These signals get implemented by the mock. And if you want to expose your type to the QML engine, for instance, and have your own properties or callable functions, then you will need the mock. But there are many use cases that you can solve without having to deal with mock at all. I have to admit, I always find it a bit difficult to see the problem of having other tools than your compiler managed by your build system. If you think mock is a problem, okay, but then also RCC will be a problem as a resource compiler, and the QML compiler will be a problem, and many other things will be a problem. And I don't quite see why we should try not to use the tools we have to do these things. We have the build system, we have CMake or QMake, if that is your thing, to take away the problem from us to run these extra tools. We want to have static code analysis. We want to have linters. We want to use tools to make our job easier. And mock in that respect is not that different from many of these other tools. So from that perspective, yes, it has limitations. You can't declare a template class as a QObject, or you can't use the QObject macro there. There are limitations. Not everything is something we can solve, but if there are problems that really prevent using it, then I'm sure we can solve it, in some cases at least. But the concept of an extra tool is a problem. I'm a little bit in denial about that statement, to be honest, because I think for us as programmers, the tools are good for us because they make it easier for us to do our job. And whether the tool is called mock or a linter or Clazy or Git or Clang format or whatever, I don't care that much.
I think so. I have to ask you some questions regarding to that, because years ago I've been playing around with a library called Vagrant, which enhances the mock.
That was from Olivier, I think. Yeah.
And I just looked at it on GitHub, and yes, it's still active. The last changes are a few months old. Because just from back then, I remember how great it was to be able to have a QObject class with signals and slots and make it a template. Like you can have a templated model, which is hugely useful when you have models and views you can reuse and just plug in your next class and have the automatically everything displayed instead of having to rewrite and implement that again and again. So while I agree with you that removing the mock probably is not the goal, because it's so dependent on so many code bases that removing it without breaking code bases would be really difficult. I do think that like vertigress shows a bit of where things go. So do you have any plans to actually touch the code for the mock and update it, like make it compatible with modern C++ and templates?
I would need to talk to Fabian about it, what his plans are as the current mock maintainer, and to Thiago, who I know is on the stream, or at least I've seen his name earlier, as one of the people working very actively on the QObject plumbing and infrastructure. What they think, I think they have looked more into verdigris than I have back in the days when Olivier was proposing that. I think the idea is interesting. And it's definitely, like you said, it opens new use cases. And as we move to more modern C++ beyond 17, I think looking into how we can, make use of all the fantastic features that we get from C++ 20 and 23, like deducing this and so forth to avoid code duplication, that we can make that available also in QObjects and in types that are emitting signals. I don't think that will get rid of the mock, but yes, making more C++ features available in classes that emit signals, I think that is ultimately a worthy goal. And whether we do that through levels of indirection, having a signal emitting type that you can simply plug into your template class, for instance, or by using metaprogramming or other techniques, that's to be discovered.
Okay. Then I heard that rendering is your domain. So there's a question: do you consider a backend to render to a possibly remote browser surface instead of a local render RP?
So we have explored and experimented, and in the Qt 5 days also had a backend for WebGL, if that is what is meant here with a remote browser surface instead of local render API. And that is what basically enabled that use case where you could have a Qt application streaming the rendering into WebGL consumer. That had a lot of limitations, and WebGL also doesn't seem to be the technology of choice here. We have now recently worked on VNC as a remote rendering solution, and we see from customers that they have different architectural requirements for running something that is basically a distributed Qt application. There is, of course, a traditional Qt application or application architecture where you have a backend and a front end running, communicating over a data exchange protocol. And then there are those cases where, for instance, VNC or a remote UI streaming solution is more desirable. And that's where VNC right now is a solution that we have been working on. But especially if we look, for instance, into what's happening in the WebAssembly space, also with WebGPU, I think there are definitely going to be activities in that space for us to integrate those technologies into what we are having with RHI, our rendering hardware abstraction, and then seeing how that allows us to render user interfaces into something remote. If the question here relates to, are we planning to generate HTML, for instance, or something like that from a Qt quick user interface, then I don't think that is the way that we are going to take here. But rather working on that on the graphics level than on the user interface model level.
So one route one could go here is WebSockets, because that opens the way to go anywhere. And there's a WebSocket API by Qt. Yes. Actually, one of my programs uses to use a web editor in the browser and then bring the edited HTML back into the program, because that saved me from having to bring on the whole Chromium part from Qt into my application to have an embedded web editor. That was a bit of an overhead I didn't want to go to. Let's see where we are on questions. So if you upload questions, that always helps me in choosing. So I see there is, of course, also questions on older Qt versions. Here we see the limitation. It's 200 characters. So someone wants to use GCC and support for C++ 20 and 23, and with Qt 5.15 by compiling Qt with the latest GCC compiler. And they haven't done that with GCC yet, but are you aware of any issues they might run into?
We had to take care of a couple of problems that we experienced when compiling Qt 6 with C++ 20 enabled. So I do anticipate that there will be problems here as well. Be it that implicit conversion to bool, if I recall correctly, was one of the challenges that we had in the Qt code. Things like comparison operators. I think we had to have a discussion and work on making sure that we have a well-defined total ordering, so that spaceship, for instance, operator works with our types. I don't remember all the details. I know that Mark has spent quite some time on looking and making sure that we have Qt code and also Qt APIs that behave well when under C++ 20 semantics, basically. And so I do not expect that you will have a trouble-free journey when you are trying to do that with Qt 5.15. So I would rather, if you can upgrade your C++ compiler and your C++ version to C++ to the latest version, then you might want to also do that with your Qt framework.
Yeah. There actually is on LinkedIn a related question. Mohsen Zahari asks, the new Qt policies on their long-time support versions, they faced many problems. Do you think this policy helped the open source community?
No, very simply, it did not help the open source community. Of course, one could cynically say that was also not the purpose of making these changes, helping the open source community. To answer this yes and no question with a simple yes and no, no, it did not help the open source community. I think it, from my perspective, could have been done differently. I understand why we as a company made that change. I sympathize with some of the rationale behind those changes. But I think both the timing and the way it was done could have been better managed. But here we are. So from what I understand, as the status quo, at least, with 5.15 being what it is, and we are releasing the LTS supporting patch versions also to the open source community with a delay, which, okay, one can debate that at extent, but especially when we look at now the Qt 6 LTS versions that are commercial only, like Qt 6.2, and now also the upcoming 6.5. From what we understand from, for instance, the KDE community, that those LTS versions are not including the open source community or the open source version, that is not considered a big deal, because the bug fixes that we have in Qt 6.2. I don't even know which version we are on right now. Those fixes are, of course, also available in the Qt 6.3 and 6.4 versions, and migrating from 6.2 to 6.4, for instance, is should not be a big problem, and so far also hasn't been for most people.
Okay. Now, there recently has been an interesting talk released by Mark Mutz about C++ 20 support in Qt 6. So, can you elaborate on that? Is there any plans to bump up or officially make their support available for it, or what's the status on this?
Yeah, we have a roadmap that still needs some discussion within the community on how we can get to making C++20 the minimal version for Qt 6. It starts with, like I mentioned, making sure that applications can be compiled with C++20, even though Qt itself doesn't require it, and even though Qt itself doesn't use C++20 constructs. So that's the first step. There was a fair amount of work done on that on API level and otherwise to make sure that this is possible. And then the next step is, of course, to see how can we use Qt C++20 constructs inside of Qt. Can we do that in the first place, or do we end up with a situation where then you need to build Qt itself with C++20, but you don't need to use it yourself? That is kind of the idea. The challenge here is, do we then end up with different versions of the standard of the lib C++ standard library, and what is the ABI compatibility between different versions of that library? So there are a couple of devils in the details there that we need to discuss internally. And then ultimately, yes, we want to get to a point where we can use C++20 in our public API, so that it becomes basically the minimal version for using Qt 6. That will take several years, for the simple reason that we are supporting platforms and in the embedded space in particular, compilers that are not C++20 compliant. In the real-time operating system space, for instance, that is not a very fast-moving toolchain. But we have experienced also with Qt 6 that by requiring C++17 has given the vendors of those toolchains maybe a bit of motivation to move along and make sure that their toolchain is also supporting the newer standards. So I'm optimistic that we can have a similar positive influence there also with Qt 6 and C++20 in the future.
Okay. There's an interesting comment / question. There's no question mark. So technically, there's not a question, but I think it's an interesting topic to talk to. So newbies, like, they need to update to the C++ GUI programming with, like, there's a Qt 4 book by Yasmin Blanchet. But of course, Qt 4 books are outdated. So what are the, like, are there planned publications you're aware of? Are there Qt 6 books planned, or?
I have to admit that I'm coming up with a blank here. I don't know what the current situation is with book authoring. I know that there have been several initiatives to make Qt 6 books. That especially, like, Lauren has done some work with using Qt for embedded programming. But I don't know if anybody is actively working on updating and replacing Yasmin's book from back in the days. I know for a fact that Yasmin is not busy doing that, because he is busy with things completely outside of the Qt ecosystem. But I'm not aware of anybody actively working on a book project right now. That doesn't mean that there isn't one. That might just mean that I don't know.
I do want to mention that there's a QML book on the web, which is openly accessible, which has newer material and good material to read on, and there's a good introduction to QML and Qt. And there is, of course, the Qt online resources provided by Qt itself, especially like the Qt examples for Qt 6. And that's how I mostly learned the part of what I want to do with Qt. So if you want to do something, if you have an idea and you want to do it with Qt, look into the examples, like look into the APIs, read through things, and look into the new releases, what new APIs are coming out, and what you could do with it. So are there plans for simplifying Qt property declarations? So much identical code.
I have not been, again, it might be a bit of a denial syndrome, but I have not been aware that the Qt property declaration is excessively full of duplications. Yes, you typically call your getter the same as the name of the property. I'm not aware of any plan. I don't think there are any plans. I'm not even aware of the problem. Evidently, there is a problem. So it's perhaps something worth looking into, how we can make the property declarations simpler and how we can bake more of the property declaration into the C++ declaration, for instance. But then there is a lot of heuristic going on, and that is a bit of a slippery slope always. If we need to figure out that, okay, here's a getter that, or here's a const member function that somehow relates to the name of the property. Maybe too much guesswork is rather doing more harm than good. But things like bindable or stored or designable and a couple of these attributes maybe don't need to be there if they can be somehow differently expressed. And even if we say, if you follow a certain naming convention, we can figure things out by just naming the property. We can figure out the type and the names of the getter and setter functions. So yeah, there is perhaps something we could do here. But again, it can easily become a slippery slope where we make a lot of assumptions and guesswork and things don't actually work as designed. But it's an interesting proposal. It's an interesting problem to raise. Let's put it like that.
That's good feedback. So if you have any suggestions how to make them simpler, the Qt maintainers are probably willing to listen to you. Then we return to C++20. If using C++20 compiler, C++20 thread or QThreads, can you mix those or like? So
yeah, QThread has a bit more infrastructure than the C++ standard threads in terms of having an extendable or a broader API, because you can run an event loop, for instance, in your thread, and there is a virtual function that you can override and these kind of things. So yeah, QThreads are still there. QThreads and C++ threads ultimately both talk to the same operating system level infrastructure to actually create a thread and control that kind of stuff. So they are they are the same thing in a different wrapping. QThreads and Qt will create QThreads for you around threads that you didn't create with a QThread if needed. For instance, if you create a Q object in a native thread or in a C++20 thread or in something that you created using native APIs, and you ask that object for its thread affinity, it will give you a QThread back, so that Qt can compare pointers and can identify threads via QThread and know if an object emits a signal to an object in another thread, for instance, and take care of the marshalling then for you. So yeah, the question it doesn't quite represent the reality that's going to happen. You can use C++20 threads in your Qt application, and that's the important message. Qt will typically not use C++20 threads or native threads, because we typically rely and depend and want to use the service that QThread gives us. But there are probably exceptions to that even as well in the Qt source code.
Yeah, so I personally very much often use the QThread pool because it's so easy just to write a class to do some background thing and then use signal slots. And the other thing is like QtThread has implemented C++20 threads, depending on your platform, may not be implemented already, or maybe in a different state. So with all the standardization going on, I think sometimes using an external implementation like Qt or Boost in certain spaces can be better, because you have one implementation which has been tested already, and 3 implementations on various platforms which are still maturing. There is a macOS question. How does the Qt team deal with macOS specific issues, especially with Apple releasing a new OS on a yearly basis, which is making it difficult to catch up?
So many of us are working on macOS as our primary platform. So eating our own dog food, at least on that level, helps. We have reasonably good relationships with Apple on an engineering level and also on a, let's say, commercial level, which is helpful to understand what they are planning to do and how the changes that they are making on an operating system level, API level, or framework level, how that impacts us. We have access to the beta versions and pre-release versions like everybody else that is part of the development program. So it's not like we have privileged access to anything here, but really just trying to make sure that we are early enough knowing what's coming our way. macOS is definitely one of the more interesting platforms to support, if I may say it like that, compared to a platform where compatibility, for instance, is a very strong focus, like Windows. There we have to think about things like look and feel and styling, and yeah, also there we could do more and better. But on macOS, of course, Apple is a little bit less strict to itself and to its own behaviors and compatibility promises around macOS, deprecating things and so forth. But basically, yeah, using the platform, working on it daily, and trying to stay on top of it, and having people also, of course, in the team that are basically having that as their priority. Make sure that Qt also looks good and behaves correctly on the next operating system version. So that is one of the things that keep us in the Qt community and in the Qt company in particular very busy. It's one of these Alice in Wonderland things where we have to run as fast as we can just to stand still. But that is one of the promises we make, right? You write your code today with Qt, and we try to make sure that your code also works and looks good, and that your application makes sense on the next version of the operating systems. So that comes with some fun work and some repeating the same thing if Apple decides to deprecate certain APIs that we were using a couple of years ago.
Yeah, a question that doesn't fully fit, but it's mostly, I think the important part is there. Are there any plans to make basic C++ Qt quick classes like Qt quick image and others part of the public API? It has been said several times in the past 5 years that it might be coming in the future, but that hasn't been happening.
Yeah, we regularly discuss what is the problem that we try to solve, and is the problem big enough for us to make things like binary compatibility commitments to our Qt quick types on the C++ level. And so far, that equation has always given us a result which said don't go there quite yet, maybe. Yes, we see that there is a benefit from having some of the Qt quick classes available through public C++ APIs, and making small steps into the direction is something we, yes, want to do. But we also know that, especially on the Qt quick framework side, which historically has been targeting a very specific use case, which was mobile devices with touchscreen. Now that we are putting more and more work into Qt quick to also make it a great toolkit for the desktop, we are extremely happy that we don't have to worry about binary or even source compatibility requirements on the C++ side, because it would lock us very much up into existing designs that might not be very applicable for what we want to do on the desktop side. So at the current state of affairs, yes, I'm sure there are some of these basic classes, like mentioned here, Qt quick image, that are pretty much set, and there is not a lot of crazy stuff we can do here to make it work better on desktop or embedded or mobile. But for the framework as at large, we are happy that we don't have any compatibility commitments right now on the C++ side. I hope we get to that point where we can say now we are really happy with what we have done here on the C++ side. We don't have a very strong entanglement of private abstractions or private classes talking to each other anymore, and then we can look into making that at least some subset of it publicly available. But yes, the 5+ years will probably be 6+ or 7+ years before we get there, to be honest.
Interesting. Would GRPC be integrated into remote objects or be another RPC system?
GRPC is an established standard for data transfer between services using interfaces that get generated into code at compile time and so forth. So it's they solve different problems than remote objects specifically. Whether remote objects, whether the maintainer of remote objects, whose name I have forgotten right now, Brett, Whether he wants to jump onto the GRPC ship as a protocol for the data exchange there is something we need to look into. Right now, these two things are independent of each other.
Interesting. So if you have any more questions, now would be the time to post them, because that is currently what we had on the key. And so as a Qt maintainer, how much time do you spend like maintaining things, and like who's actually one thing I was thinking about, like, you know, chief Qt maintainer, but which group or which people, or like, and I guess you're part of that group, makes like the decisions and plans for the future of Qt?
So the future of Qt, where we want to go, it is each maintainer's privilege to have a roadmap and to have a vision for the thing that they are maintaining, and for also both from a functional perspective and from a code hygiene perspective, make sure that we are moving things into a good direction where things get incrementally better, incrementally improved, in small steps or in larger steps. That really depends on each module. But each maintainer, first and foremost, having their own idea of where they want to go with Qt, and then my responsibility is to try to see how we can make sure that these things are aligned with each other, that we are pulling into the same direction. And if there are differences, and if two maintainers find themselves in disagreement and can't really conclude to that, then I'm the ultimate arbitrator. The Qt project is not. I don't like to think about it as a project under benevolent dictatorship. I don't think it does justice to the project. It's far too complex for a single person to say for all of the different aspects of it, from network programming to system level programming to distributed systems to user interface development, where each of these things is going. So I think the maintainers that we have do a fantastic job in making sure that things get better, that things are staying relevant and modern and reinventing themselves if necessary. And yes, that work is done by doing it, as much as it is done by also talking to each other and coordinating. But the people who are doing the work, it's a meritocracy. So people who are spending the time sitting down and implementing their ideas and pushing patches for review, those are the ones that define where the direction is going. Of course, as far as the Qt company is concerned, we are looking, Qt is our product. We build Qt to sell Qt ultimately, and to make it more valuable, and to find to make sure that customers are seeing value in renewing their licenses and upgrading to the latest version. So we deal with Qt, we treat Qt as a product with a roadmap and with discussions and with trying to understand what customers want to do and so forth. So of course, given that the Qt company is a big investor into Qt, as a employer of most of the developers, or a large part of the developer spending every day in full time on Qt, of course, what we decide internally in the company and what we discuss in terms of what is interesting for the business, that has a huge influence. But it's happening within the context of the open source governance and of the open source maintainers that are otherwise also part of this. And I think, like I mentioned when the question about the roadmap was asked, I do know that we can do more to involve people and to be more transparent about what's going on. That is something that we want to do. That is basically the different aspects of the decision-making process of where are we going with Qt are involving all these different things.
Many Qt examples seem to be a bit lacking from modern C++ standpoint, like the use of new delete everywhere instead of unique pointer. Is that because of something like in the Qt, or like just do you like generally maybe like talk about like Qt using new and delete instead of like modern?
The Qt philosophy and the way that Qt models object ownership doesn't translate very well into modern C++, to be honest. It would not be very valuable to have Qt examples that allocate objects and manage objects that are allocated dynamically with unique pointer just to then hand them over to their parent and then basically remove them from the unique pointer again, either implicitly or whatever, using a move-only API. So it wouldn't really add a lot of value to the comprehensibility of the examples, I think, if you would pepper unique pointers all over the place. It would look like, okay, who is actually owning the object right now? Right now, the QObject ownership model is at least, it's clear in that sense. Objects which have a parent are owned by that parent. If we throw unique pointer into the mix, I think it would rather confuse people. There have been proposals of, can we have a template member function to QObject make child or something to that effect, which basically, makes the object ownership clearer for readers of the code when they look for unique pointers and weak pointers and so forth. I think that these are interesting ideas. I don't think they solve a very big problem right now, other than that people who are expecting unique pointers and smart pointers generally to express object ownership need to understand how Qt works. You need to understand how Qt works anyway in that respect. Jumping into that understanding head first and having maybe a bit of a surprise moment when you start looking into this and saying, okay, this is not what they teach in the modern C++ books. Yes, I think the sooner you realize that Qt does it differently, the less confusion you will have further down the road.
I think it's like definitely one thing we should point out is like putting like a Qt pointer that is owned by a Qt object parent into a unique pointer is a bad idea, because then the unique pointer, when it gets out of scope, will delete the same instance as the Qt parent. So maybe there's some use case for that, but generally as a beginner or someone looking in the code, Qt often wraps like the ownership into a parent, and when the parent gets deleted, it cascades through the children. And so there's no general problem with that in Qt in ownership. That's taken care of.
Yeah, and almost every, there are exceptions of course, but almost every polymorph type in Qt, which you have to allocate using operator new because you wanted to escape the scope, almost all of these types are QObjects, and everything else is a value type that you don't allocate with operator new anyway. So in that case, there are exceptions, and of course there are reasons to not give objects ownership and don't parent them to anything, in which case you can of course use a unique pointer and should use a unique pointer to manage your object lifetime. But within the examples at least, I think that is a pretty rare construct.
Okay. Is there an effort planned to update QML or Quick to support more recent standards of ECMAScript?
I would have to talk to Ulf and Fabian about what their immediate plans are. It hasn't been high on the list of our internal planning discussions, at least for a while, so I'm not entirely sure. That is the best I can do right now.
Okay. So I see there is lots of debate in the chat on various things we matched, and what's your personal take on the newer C++ standards as a Qt maintainer? How much can you follow that? And
how much can anybody follow that? I mean, C++ 20 is huge. Just understanding the implications of what that means in practice. What are the practical use cases for certain things that were added? I really loved Timur's presentation talk a couple of weeks ago about like here is C++ 23 changes the way that we develop software or write code. And he started with those 3 or 4 slides of here are all the things in C++ 23, and then cutting away, here are the things that really make a difference, and most of the other stuff is either fixes to things that weren't there, or just simple wrappers around things that were complicated to express. But here are the 4 features that really make a difference, and C++ 20 is even more so, right? It's a ton of stuff, and really trying to understand what of that stuff is really moving the needle in a substantial way, in a significant way for us as programmers to be able to write better, more concise, but also more comprehensible code. That is I struggle, to be honest. I love what Mark has been doing. The presentation was mentioned that he held at the Qt World Summit about how C++20 and Qt will come together, and what our current evaluation is of what the different features are that are relevant for us, and also honestly saying some of the things will not be relevant for us, at least not in the current iteration, like modules, for instance, given that we have preprocessor symbols in our headers, that we can't turn Qt into a bunch of modules. But other things like concepts, for instance, or what we can do with coroutines, I think we will have some very interesting work in that direction going on, and also talks about that. If you are in Oslo, by the way, in a month from now, 13th of April, we will have a C++ users group meetup where we talk a bit about these things. I love what's happening on the C++ standard as far as it's making the language less verbose and easier to comprehend is concerned, like deducing this, how that allows us to remove a lot of duplication. How and if we can use that, that's always for us a question. Depends a lot on what are the implications for binary compatibility, for instance, or source compatibility. Can we now start replacing all of our various const, non-const, move only overloads and use the deduction of this? I guess not, because then we need to make things in line, and we need to have the symbols exported by the library. So yeah, I like very much where the standard is going in that respect, and how much it makes many things simpler. I also think there is a lot of stuff that is really a very sharp knife for people that really know what they are doing and need that kind of tool, but it's not super applicable even for us as library developers. I mean, we need many of these modern C++ features as a library developer that somebody who is developing an application perhaps doesn't really need or care about. But even for us as C++ library developers, I think many of the things in the standard are really, even there, it's a bit too specialized, too expert, too niche-y, let's say. But it's always a bit of work to find out what of the stuff is actually useful.
How does Qt handle security in its code base?
How does it handle security? So there are various parts of Qt. The majority of Qt is not exposed to untrusted content. So even if there is a memory issue that would, in theory, allow you remote code execution or any attack vector in general, that code is never exposed to something that is untrusted. There are, on the other hand, parts of Qt that are exposed to and designed to consume untrusted content, like our network code, for instance, obviously, or image format handlers, or a couple of other APIs that are supposed and designed to make it easy for an application developer to consume something that the application user or the application developer has no chance of scrubbing. And then that is something that we are discussing right now, actually. Can we document clearer which parts of the Qt API are designed to deal with untrusted contents? And do we need tighter processes around this? We do things like, okay, make sure that our third-party libraries, for instance, are always up to date. Because in many of these parts, like image format handlers, we depend on third-party libraries doing the actual jobs. And these third-party libraries, of course, get constantly security updates. We do keep them up to date. So that's one of the things that we are doing. For the Qt code base itself, we do use things like static code analysis, for instance, to help us catch some of the things that can be caught that way. That is definitely not everything. It's one of the tools in the box. One of the things is that the robot, for instance, is doing is running OSFAS against Qt and exposing the framework to that, which is helping us to identify both performance regressions or suboptimal, let's say, algorithms and complexity, but also crashes or anything else that indicates that we have an attack vector here. And then as security policy is concerned, if you find anything in Qt that you believe exposes Qt to or Qt users to a vulnerability, then please report it to us. We have a security mailing list just for that, security@theqtproject.org. And then we triage the incoming reports, evaluate them together with the maintainers, and see what we need to do. And if we have a patch that fixes the security issue, then we will port that back to all the still maintained Qt versions, including Qt 5.15 at this point. So, yeah.
Yeah. And and that point is thank you for your openness and your willingness to share the CVEs on your blog and to actually say this is an issue, this is what we fixed, and this is the patches if you want to, or if you need to fix it in your code base. And the next question: are there any plans to retire Qt scoped pointer, etc., in favor of the corresponding standard library types?
Not plans to retire them from the public API because it's part of the public API. But as far as at least internal code is concerned, you will probably get a -1 from somebody during code review if you add more code that uses QScope pointer instead of QUnique pointer. QScope pointer has slightly different semantics from unique pointer, and it can actually escape the scope, for instance. Yeah. So yes, we don't want to use it anymore, but we also acknowledge it's part of the public API. People have written code against it, and there we are.
Yeah, it's API and API stability is what we all face. And once you made it available, changing it is difficult. Related question is, modern C++ favors move and value semantics. Qt often has copy on write and reference semantics. Does this make it more difficult to interface with more modern code bases? From Qt.
Does it make it more difficult to interface with more modern code bases? So I mean, the infrastructure that we have for copy and write, for instance, makes Qt value types, of course, very movable. I mean, it's the showcase for move semantics, that you have your data structures in some dynamically allocated D pointer thing, and that is the one that you move. So I don't think these things are in contrast or in conflict with each other. Copy on write is still extremely useful if we can't move a return value out of the function because it's not a temporary. So whenever we have a getter of a property that is stored in the class, being able to return a copy of that value without having to make a copy of that value, but using copy on write, of course, is still a huge benefit in terms of performance. Does it make it more difficult to interface with modern code bases? I'm not aware of any challenges as such, to be honest. I mean, the fact that many of the more Qtish Qt types are Q objects and are polymorph and have virtual functions, and you can't move them or you can't copy them as a value. That doesn't go away, and I think that is perhaps if you think about modern code bases, yes, it's maybe an old-fashioned thing to declare functions as virtual because you would rather have algorithms that take a callable or a lambda or something to that effect, and that allows you to hook in your customization points. But that ship has sailed for Qt, at least as far as all the Q object types are concerned. So. But I don't believe I don't think it makes it more difficult to interface with other modern code bases.
Okay. Are there any efforts to strengthen the community around Qt?
Yes, there are. We have, and I'm very happy about that, with Pedro Bessa, a community manager now in the company that basically has that as a full-time job to interface with communities like Meeting C++ or the KDE community and organize several activities around established communities, both in the Qt and in the C++ space, but also very actively these days working with with schools and universities, for instance, to see how we can bring Qt into the curriculum and work on that level with the educational sector. So several activities going on. Yeah, I'm sure there can be more, especially on the contribution side. I think I would like us to have more time to do more things. but time is what it is, and here we are. So yes, I do think there are efforts going on, and I do think there could be more efforts going on. But what each small step is useful and is valuable. So
yeah, I think this is really a good point. Which actually brings me to another question, because I have been talking also to your community manager, and there is a Qt conference in Brazil, and I know that you have also been there and spoke. And I just want to know, how was the conference in Brazil? How felt it, and what was or is popular with this audience and this community?
We were actually not there. We had an online keynote at QtCon in Brazil when was that? Late last year, I think. Yeah, that I think people were very happy to talk to us. Pedro is from that neck of the woods, so he has good connections there. And of course, I think to some degree, due to the Nokia days when Nokia had a very active research center in Brazil, I think we have a very active and very strong and very positive community there, and it was very good to be invited to their local community conference and talk about what we are planning to do with Qt. That was good. That was I really enjoyed that, and I haven't heard anything bad about what we talked about there from that side, but it's sometimes a bit hard to get feedback, of course.
Yeah, it's really nice to see that the Qt company is actually maintaining a presence in Brazil, and organizing a conference for the local community.
Or the local community organized that conference. We didn't actively organize. We were invited to keynote about both what Pedro is doing with the community and what I'm doing as the then still new, and maybe now also.
But it's still nice to see that you contribute to that, and
yes, thank you.
Because I think that it's like, we have the big conferences in Europe and in the US, but in the rest of the world, there's just now coming up initiatives like India has CPP India, and recently the group has started CPP Africa, and I hear that somebody plans to have a conference in Japan, but there's still a lot to do. And with that, I think if you have any more questions, Thiago has posted the link to the QtCon in Brazil in the chat. If you have any more questions, post them now. And I thank the audience in both in Hobilo and in LinkedIn so far for their questions. And we're going now a little bit more than an hour. And so any questions or anything you would like to mention, Volker? Any plans with Qt? Anything you want to mention and still talk about?
Yeah, piggybacking on your question about the community, like I mentioned, we have a meetup in Oslo on the 13th of April. If you are in that part of the world, we would be very happy to welcome you to not necessarily our offices, but the building in which our office is. And we will have some interesting sessions about Qt and C++ in particular. And that is something that I hope we can do generally, not trying to bootstrap Qt communities all over the world, but really also being part of the C++ community and joining that. And I know there is always a bit of not necessarily antagonism, but people that think Qt is not C++ and so forth. I think we are part of the same community, and
of course, yes,
we are all getting richer by each other. So yeah, thanks again for inviting me and making that conversation part of this group.
Yes. See, there is a question which is more towards me. I quickly want to take that in. How often do we do those live sessions? So we do those live sessions roughly once a month. And today our guest is Volker Hilsheimer, and he has been answering questions on Qt and the C++ community and C++, and as a chief maintainer, there's a lot of things to do and to maintain, and lots of plans. It was a very good conversation. Thank you for your time. Thank you for coming. It was an honor to have you. And
Thank you,
with
Jens.
that, I think we're going to close the stream. And thank you for your time.
Thank you all for coming and for asking interesting questions. And yeah, looking forward to the follow-up.
Okay.
Take care.
So